Hi, I'm Amy McKnight, Mac mentor and founder of the Mac Spa. I have been using and supporting Apple products and helping people with their technology needs for over 20 years. And one of the other things I really enjoy and look forward to after a long day of busting my brain at work is happy hour. So in this new video series, I'll be interviewing my friends and colleagues over happy hour while we're discussing a tech topic. So I hope you'll have a drink with us and enjoy the show, and maybe you'll even learn something new.
How are you doing today?
Good.
Cheers.
Good to see you. Cheers to you.
You as well. This is my friend Eric. He's my guest today, and he is also a fellow entrepreneur, co-founder of Prismajic, the entertainment company, and business and finance professional.
Yes.
So I'd like to talk about that a little bit, like what you are currently working on. I think of you as a very balanced right brain, left brain person because you have a lot of really analytical type experience, but also a very creative person.
You know, my background's finance and analysis, but I grew up in a household where my mother was an artist and my dad was an electrical engineer by training. And so I kind of grew up with both of those. And it's really translated into what I've done in my life and with my career. And then it translates really well into Prismatic. So my co-founder really runs our art side of things. She's our head of design and runs all our creative teams. And so that's really her bailiwick. And I really focus more on the business side of things. But for like high-level concepting and idea generation, I'll come in and help and throw out some ideas. And so that balance really works well.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, and so we've been doing immersive art projects since 2012, really, and have sort of grown up alongside the industry or with the industry. Did our largest or our first independent production we started off doing work for corporate clients. 2019, we did our first large-scale immersive production that was just for ourselves, along with a partner. That was super successful, saw about 55,000 people go through it. And then we opened a second one in 2020 that kind of ran into some, pandemic issues. And we're sort of just stair-stepping forward at this point.
Right.
And so what we do specifically is create these large-scale immersive art experiences where we combine traditional art forms like painting and sculpture, glasswork, whatever, with cutting-edge technology. So we do augmented reality, sensor-based technologies, things like that. We're about 85% organic, 15% tech.
So you're in the entertainment industry. It's a little bit more of a tangible experience. But what our tech topic is today is video streaming and entertainment on our screens. So I wanted to get your point of view as far as how you experience your entertainment, and then how we've evolved as a society from going from our televisions and cable to streaming services and entertainment, and then maybe how that ties into your current projects. Like, how do you make the physical art experience or immersive experience kind of match up with the video entertainment scene?
Right. So
maybe those cross over.
Yeah, well, the way I look at it in terms of technology, so this will all live within this framework, is that I like to frame it as technology will never again move as slowly as it is today. And of course, it's moving super fast today, and that's only going to accelerate. So when we think about where we've been and where we're going and how quickly we're going to get there, I don't think there's ever, you're never going to stop, but at least how quickly you're moving, it all lives in that context. From sort of the perspective of where we are right now and what we do, one of our biggest challenges is integrating technology in organic builds. So it's very easy with the technology in the state it's in right now to make the introduction of technology very disruptive for people's experience. So say, our experiences you can kind of think of them as walking into a haunted house in the sense that the experience is all around you, But our experiences are more meditative and spiritual and artistic and sort of beautiful.
There's nobody going to jump out.
Maybe only your own friends. I don't know.
Right.
But so you enter into this physical environment, and if I try to introduce technology into that in the wrong way, it suddenly becomes very jarring. Mm-hmm. So you suddenly have to pull out a phone, and if that sort of transition from the real world to the phone is not sort of delicately managed, it can pull you out of the entire experience and the illusion that we're trying to create. So from a technology standpoint and sort of a video standpoint, that's one of the things we're very focused on. So one of the things we do in our experiences are augmented reality apps. So you take your phone, and then in the case of our most recent experience, Shiki Dreams, you'll point it at a lantern that has some symbols on it, and those symbols will be recognized by the software in your camera or on your phone, and then play a video that's related to your experience at that point inside of your experience. And so you can sort of think of that as part of a continuum of technology and technological development, screen-based technological development, starting way back when we were kids, when it's all like antennas and just 3 channels plus PBS or whatever you had. Right. And it was this wasteland.
There's something called antennas that picked up the channels out of the air.
It was like magic. And then I think I was probably like, I don't know, like 7 or something when we got cable, and we had like HBO, and it was a huge big deal, and that was super revolutionary. And I think the programming stopped at like 11 p.m. or something.
Oh, right. It goes off air. And there'd be an American flag flying.
Totally.
My big thing was MTV.
Oh, yeah.
It was. I didn't have cable. And anytime I got to go to a friend's house, it was like, we have to watch MTV. We have to watch Beavis and Butthead. We have to watch music videos. And I was all about the MTV.
Oh, yeah. And that was huge for people.
Yeah. And then finally getting into the movie channels and things like that. So I remember that being a really big revolution. Mm-hmm. And then at home, it was like VHS and Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah.
That was about the extent of our abilities.
Yep. Going to Blockbuster and all that.
Yes. From a consumer standpoint. Mm-hmm. I think what you're talking about more in the development field is with AR. I do believe it's becoming more accessible. I don't know a lot about it, but I do see that becoming maybe the next phase of where people have accessibility to things on just a regular consumer scale.
Right.
So similar to how we graduated from the VHS to the DVD, and then at one point there was what was that thing called? Light ray.
Blu-ray.
I forgot. There was Blu-ray, and that Laserdisc.
Laserdiscs.
There was a Laserdisc. I just thought I didn't even think of that before. And then Blu-ray, and I don't know what happened with Blu-ray, but people just got away from discs and digital. Mm-hmm. And people have the ability, though. Like we had the ability to burn our own movies and make your own home movies and things like that. So now I feel like the next evolution potentially could be, what else can we do just in the consumer space, right, as far as developing games or entertainment or these art installations or anything.
Right. I mean, if you think about one of the big, transition points for me was came in 2008, when I first went from cable, where it's all, your programming is all based on what they push out to you. Mm-hmm. And I got a Roku. And it suddenly became a thing where you could pull content to you. Mm-hmm. So I could decide when I was going to watch things.
On demand.
Yeah, it was all on demand. It became on demand. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's a huge game changer. So now the consumer is in charge of the content and when they get to ingest it. Mm-hmm. And then it becomes sort of a natural progression to, you become accustomed to the idea of I'm in charge of the content and when it gets delivered, to, okay, now I'm just going to make that delivery more and more robust. I want it when I want it, in the definition I want it on my phone, I want it accessible all the time, and the interfaces have to be good. And then you get to democratization of content. as software develops, and now it goes from production house sort of content to anybody can do it. And, to the point now where you'll get professional journalists shooting their stories on their iPhone.
Right.
So now you've got the democratization of content.
And better technology.
Yeah, and better technology, and enabled
to
by
capture.
all that. It becomes super inexpensive. The next hurdle I'd like to see us sort of overcome, and it's sort of an iterative process, but it's happening super fast, is like all the AR and VR stuff. VR is first, so the difference between the two for people who aren't familiar is virtual reality, you put a screen in front of your face and you see what's projected onto the screen only. So you're cut off from the real world. Augmented reality, your screen is kind of clear and you're projecting digital content onto a clear screen so you can see the real world behind your digital content.
Right.
And that content can be three-dimensional, hyper-realistic, whatever. VR is easier to do. So as it stands right now, what's being commercialized is all VR technology. But with the coming of the pandemic, and us going first to Zoom calls, so that gets adopted as a behavior, and people become comfortable with that mindset. So we probably accelerated the adoption curve 3 to 5 years, maybe.
I would say, for sure, in my experience with my business,
Yeah.
that would be true, because it was very difficult to get people on board a remote call when you had other options to meet in person.
Yep.
So it was just like that. Every single person got on board immediately with the Zoom calls once they had to.
Yeah.
So it did force that change, and it will accelerate our growth, I believe.
Yeah. Oh, I think there's no going back, and there's such a huge cost savings and time savings. There's a whole segment of society who's your business traveler who has to burn, 2 days of travel to have a round of meetings that last half a day. Now you get 2 days back and, $5,000 in travel costs, whatever.
And you're saving the environment.
Yeah. And the next step I'd like to see, and that they're working on this, and they have, it's functional, are VR meetings. So it's really avatar based right now from what I've seen. So, the graphics are kind of crude. We need to up our transmission speeds. We need to get, 5G going. So we're untethered and we get super high download speeds and all that.
That's critical.
But if I can now have a virtual meeting where I get 95 or 90% of the benefit of an in-person meeting in terms of being able to read your body language and getting a sense of how you're actually reacting more than just what you see on a flat screen, which can be a little masking.
Yeah.
I can see if you're wearing pants or not, whatever.
It's also, it's just exhausting. Just staring at one screen and having to look at somebody's face the whole time and not having any sense of their environment or your own environment sometimes.
And then were we talking last night about how in the virtual rooms now you can go off and have side conversations and they can monitor and direct like the volume.
Yeah, we were talking about Mozilla.
Yeah.
Is coming up with that, and I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either, but it sounds, now you're starting to replicate the in-person functionality.
Right, like an ambient space. So I might hear a faint conversation happening over here and be focused on this conversation here.
Right. So that's all live, right? So you and I are meeting virtually, and the tracking has to be done real time. So your hardware, software requirements are higher. Your flow-through rates have to be higher, all that stuff. But they've already, if you step back half a step and like start looking at what they're doing in filmed entertainment, like what Jon Favreau did with The Lion King, where they actually filmed, it was basically a CGI version of the movie. They filmed that all on a virtual set. And so he would be able to fly through this virtual environment. They were, like the production people were wearing VR headsets so they can look around, see what the environment looks like, and then figure out their camera angles and shoot within that space The requirements aren't as high because you don't have to live stream everything. It's sort of fixed rate. You don't have to go back and forth, all those things.
Wow.
But essentially, that is the first step towards high-res, high-fidelity VR meeting spaces, right? And now we have the actual ones. They're just a little low on throughput.
Sure.
But they'll get there. 5G is getting rolled out as we speak. I don't know exactly what the tech requirements are and the bandwidth requirements are for like high fidelity VR meetings and ultimately AR meetings versus what 5G can support. But I strongly suspect that 5G has the bandwidth to support that. And then it just becomes a matter of time.
Right. And like you said, development is accelerating as we move forward.
Yeah. We've now, we're a smaller company. For both of our last experiences, both Natura Obscura, our first one in 2019, and Shiki Dreams in 2020, we went through and filmed the entire experience in VR, 3D VR. And we now have, with that content, the ability to stitch that all together and create virtual experiences for, $7,000-8,000.
It's really cool.
Yeah, and suddenly our experience, this kind of ties into entertainment and democratization of entertainment. Whereas, even a few years ago, our experiences would be restricted to people coming to see us. I can now create a reasonable proximity or approximation of that experience and load it to Steam and then allow people to watch it at home. So now my audience becomes the world.
And it could be unlimited potentially?
Yeah.
As far as attendees?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I can do post-production work on that. We can do, all kinds of other experiences that maybe in some ways are even more robust than what we have in person. Now, there's some other technologies that you can layer into the in-person experience. I think the in-person will always be sort of richer and more robust until you can get to the point where you would touch the physical environment in sort of touch the simulated environment in a VR or AR experience at home. And because you're wearing like haptic suits and all that stuff, that you would there's no difference between you being in person or remote, which we're not there yet, but we're probably not that far off.
That sounds really cool. Do you think that you would not have a physical experience if you were at that level? Or do you think you'd always want to have that as a complement?
I don't know. I really don't know.
That's hard to say.
We're entering into, in my opinion, what could be considered sort of the post-human environment. So what it means to be a person and what it means to be physically present becomes very different from what it's meant in the past. And whether that's here in 20 years or 80 years or whatever, we'll be stair-stepping towards that. And what people's preferences are, if I'm super busy all the time and I want to have an experience that Prismajic creates, it may be worth the trade-off for me to just do that at home, or maybe I'll opt into that, or maybe I'll go to one Prismajic experience because I have to travel to it and be it in person, and I can be in physically present with my my family, my friends, whoever. But I want to have more than those experiences, but I don't want to travel 4 different times to see 4 different shows. So I'll go once for the special time and then 3 times just by myself or with a couple friends. We're networked into a simulated experience.
That's really cool.
Who
I'm
knows?
really interested to see what is happening in the entertainment space, because I think that allows you flexibility to be creative, and as you discover things, it starts to lend itself to practical uses as well. So then we start to see the evolution of the meeting rooms and how we can use these things practically. As well as entertainment. So that's really cool.
And I think you see a lot of that coming out of the gaming the gaming world,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Definitely. Yeah, I should talk to a gamer.
Yeah. You know, all the guys who do esports stuff, I mean, that's a huge industry now.
Yeah.
It's a monster.
Yeah.
And they are, you know, they're like the way porn used to be. You know, like they have to be at the cutting edge of technology.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to have super fast download rates and, you know, processing capabilities, and everything has to be real time. And, you know, they're at the point where, you know, split seconds can make the difference between you getting shot or you not getting shot.
Mm-hmm.
And as you pour like resources into an industry leader like that, you get all bleed out into the rest of the consumer market.
Yeah, I'm always impressed by those games. They're really, they're really out there.
Yeah.
Very realistic.
I'm sort of excited about the AR experience too.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
Yeah. Because then you can start integrating get the best of both worlds, right? You get the best of the physical world and the best of the digital world.
Well, if you visit the Apple campus in Cupertino, they have a whole AR experience that their visitors can try out.
I'd like to go to the Disney experience. So like the new Star Wars experience, see how they're essentially doing the same thing, right? Integration of tech plus your physical environment.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when you get to those large group experiences like that, you can spend a lot of money on your tech. And then 3-5 years down the line, that technology becomes democratized and everybody else can use it. You know, maybe not the big physical builds, but the use of the, you know, cutting edge software. It's so scalable. You know, the money is all in building software up front. And then it's basically zero cost to sell it from there. So it distributes out super fast.
Right. Yeah, it becomes more accessible and affordable, and people have more ideas what they can do with it.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Point. So meanwhile, I'm sitting back at home watching my cable television, because I still have cable. I've probably had it for 10 years or more. And I actually still like the programming features. Like I don't like to think about too hard what I want to watch sometimes. And I just put on my favorite station and, oh, look, this is on, and I'll just watch that. But I do have DVR, so I still record things that I might want to watch later. So it's been interesting for me because I've done the math and I enjoy my cable experience. And I think about, well, what if I got a Netflix and a Hulu and HBO Max looks really awesome. A lot of good programs coming out there. We have Amazon Prime. There's always something coming out. There's Discovery. And I'm like, well, you know, even if I only got 2 packages, I still am paying what I'm paying for cable. And there's not really any programming. That means I have to select everything I watch. And it's a little bit, it kind of makes me a little anxious. But I think probably more people than not, that's how they watch shows and TV, right?
That's, I think, it's a huge issue for me. Like if I have to spend more than like 10 seconds looking for something to watch, I might forget it. You know?
Right.
I just can't, you know, there's so much, we're so saturated in content now. And the person who solves how to drive content to you, like the content you really like to you in a way that really works, will be a very rich person.
Yeah. I think it's so split up right now, and they are starting to package things together, but it seems like what's happening is they're starting to allow you to customize your packages almost. So it's a little bit more a la carte. So it's like having cable, but I want to pick this set of channels and this set of channels.
Right.
So I'm seeing that maybe becoming an evolution of TV, or what used to be called TV, or, you know, just entertainment, how we consume it. But with all those different subscriptions, I just have a problem with, if I want to watch one thing here and I have to subscribe to that, and then I want to jump ship, I feel like I'm managing it more, because I might want to do a 30-day trial for one series and then drop that and then try another platform or something.
Right.
But yeah, so I kind of just stuck with my cable to kind of not have the anxiety.
I subscribe to Netflix and Amazon, but I would say, so I have a couple of different things that I'll watch on those. Like periodically a series will come up, and I'll be okay. I'm really interested in that series. So currently, I'm watching The Expanse on, I think that's Amazon. Super awesome, right? But there was probably 2 months between the last show that I was really interested in watching and finding The Expanse. Then I would just almost go dry and not really use those services until I heard about something that I was really interested in, and then I would be like, okay, I'm gonna go look at that. So what I will do is watch a lot of YouTube, and so a lot of that's more like either instructional or like I like to watch tennis. But I don't want to watch a whole match. I want to watch like the highlights of like the finals of the US Open or whatever. So they cut 20, 30-minute segments of, highlights out of the women's or men's final or whatever. And so I get to watch the entire match in like 20 minutes.
So do you subscribe to YouTube service or
Nope.
just the free ones?
Just a free one.
Yep.
And then the other one that I picked up that's been a huge, like the best value out of all my streaming services is actually ESPN Plus.
Okay.
And so I don't watch any sports except for UFC and boxing. And mostly just UFC. So for $6 a month, I get a huge library of UFC content.
That's cool.
And so, it seems like we're addressing the same problem in two different ways. So if you look at like finding the right content anxiety as the problem, then you're letting it get pushed to you.
Right.
And I'm just like, okay, well, I know I know I'm going to get exactly the UFC right here. So if I want to watch UFC, boom, I don't have to like worry about it.
Right. Because it is like a channel, but there's probably still content within that channel. So it's not just like Netflix where you're like, I have no idea what genre or, what I'm going for.
Right.
But UFC kind of narrows it down.
Yeah. So ESPN Plus, you have access to all like their whole, array of sports. But I'm just bang right to my niche and then bang right to what I want to watch.
Yeah. And it's worth the $6.
Yeah. And it's like no money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a finance guy, this was a question I really wanted to ask you because you're a finance person. What do you think about spending a lot of money on entertainment? Do you think that it's, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. Do you think it's ethical that there's so many options that so many people are just like, I'll sign up for that. And before you know it, they're $150, $200 a month for these services. Maybe they're using them, maybe they aren't.
Right. I don't know if it's an ethical question so much as a consumer and content cycle question. So I think what we're going to see now, and it seems like you're already seeing this, is, we started off with a small number of service providers, content providers. Like you started off with what? Netflix was probably the first. Way back in like
and that was
the
DVDs.
blockbusters, it was DVDs and mailing you that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then Amazon came along, and then Hulu, and pick your service of choice. Now
Apple.
you got what's that?
Apple TV.
Yeah, Apple TV. But then you have like now our later entrants when the field's crowded, like Disney Plus, and I think like Warner, Discovery, whoever are entering into the field, and now you're like swamped with content. And probably we're getting to the point where there's more content than there's money in the market to support it. And I would suspect that we will see at some point sort of an overexpansion and a sort of a compression in the number and amount of content, number of providers and the amount of content you see that are available to you. And then we'll get to that sort of balance point where the market and the supply and demand are sort of in balance, and then we'll sort of level out and stasis out and see how it goes from there. What I think will be interesting to see is like how niche-y do we get to be? Like when Netflix canceled The Curious Creations of Christine McConnell.
Yes.
Awesome show, right? Super creative. If you're in the arts, I highly suggest you watch it. But it was a very targeted show, and when they canceled it, I read a little bit about it, and as I recall, I mean, maybe I'm recalling it incorrectly, but I think I'm not, is that, Netflix, like, well, we want to go to less niche-y content and just go to big, broad swaths of stuff. Which I was disappointed to see them cancel the show, but I was really disappointed to hear them say, well, we're going more blockbuster rather than niche, which, as someone who has very specific tastes, I want you guys to go the other way. I want you to niche out.
There's things like Criterion that have just specific collections of movies, for example, that are very niche. So I can see the value of that.
Yeah. So, who knows how people will assemble their stuff. I mean, I'd love to have, 6 or 7 different subscriptions to the equivalent of an ESPN, where I'm like, okay, I want to go to like really interesting, creative programming, whether that's cooking shows or art shows or whatever. So here's my little subscription. And then here's my little subscription for, intellectual, independent films. Here's my subscription for action-based, blockbuster movies. But that are like smarter than your normal stuff. And whatever it is that people want to see.
Yeah, that's some evolution too, and just how things are categorized and how the algorithms find what you're looking for. We have at the MacSpa have a video streaming class where we talk about all of these different services and help people to kind of figure it out, because it is an ever evolving thing, and we actually do help a little bit on the financial side, the budgeting side of like, well, how much do you want to spend? And like, here's a chart of, if you want these channels, then you should get this package or whatever.
Right on.
So, so we do try to help people with that, because I feel like it is getting saturated and it's kind of a confusing space to be in.
Yeah. I think that's a great service and really helpful. Because I don't know what my options are. Like you mentioned that one movie,
Criterion.
Yeah, Criterion. Like I don't even know that was a thing. And maybe it would be from a financial perspective, maybe great for me to subscribe to Criterion, because maybe I get twice as much content that I'm interested in for half the money as like Netflix or whatever. I didn't even know it was a thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of different options out there and a lot of different equipment as well. Like I have an Apple TV. I know there's Roku. People use all different types of equipment to access their services, or some people just watch stuff on their phone. Right. Which is, so small. Like what happened to those big screen TVs we used to have?
Totally. That's all I have. This is just I just watch it on my laptop.
Yeah, on your laptop. So it's portable, it's easy. I'm just interested to see how we evolve into the different types of entertainment. And I'm really interested to see the AR and interested in your projects as well. Yeah. So did you want to tell folks how they can find information about Prismajic?
Sure. So you can find us online, of course, at prismajic.com. So it's prismajic.com. Our next show opens March 4th. We'll run through the 28th, called Celestial Chaos, with an awesome partner, Rainbow Militia. So it's a Cirque du Soleil style performance. Then Shiki Dreams, which we opened in 2010, will reopen in April. And then we hope to roll out some new experiences through probably the summer of this year. Great. And then eventually get to a really large permanent space.
Awesome. Yeah. So if you're in Colorado, definitely check those out. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks,
and cheers.
Yeah. I'm almost out.
And that's a wrap. Thank you for joining us today. For more about the MacSpa, go to themacspa.com, or for tech tips, go to youtube.com/themacspa. If you have a great idea for a tech topic you'd like to hear about, please leave it in the comments. See you next time.